Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. This is Dr. Ashish and live on live show every Friday. Normally we are live at 12, but this time it's 1:30 with Debbie. So we are going to have a discussion with Debbie Myers Anderson and all things about nutrition and women's health. And welcome, Debbie.
Oh, thank you for having me, Dr. Ashish. It's lovely to be here.
Thank you for being here. So I just want to know from you first, what do you do?
Yes, I am a holistic therapist and a nutritional therapist as well. So I think maybe people won't know what a holistic therapist is, but I practice lots of different complementary therapies. So that's things like reflexology and massage, Indian head massage, baby massage. And these are therapies that work alongside sort of conventional medicine.
Yeah.
And then I'm also a nutritional therapist. So that's very much, a 360 approach to nutrition. So it's very much about what you're eating, but it's also very much about your lifestyle and your stress and sort of coming at it from a 360 approach. So the two work really, really well hand in hand.
Yeah, absolutely. And how long have you been doing this?
So I retrained as a holistic therapist around 20 years ago. I used to work in the music industry when in my 20s, and I had a really unhealthy lifestyle. I was very stressed. I was anxious, and I kind of found holistic therapy is really helpful in kind of combating a lot of the things that I was feeling. And then I realized that, I could actually retrain in this. So I retrained in all different therapies. And for a large part of it, I actually still work for a cancer charity, working with patients and families. So using those holistic therapies for in that setting, which works really, really well alongside conventional medicine. And then for me, I kind of really realized that there was a missing link for me. And the missing link was nutrition, because nutrition and using nutrition as medicine is so powerful. So I went back and I did a 3-year training, which was really intense training, but it really, put me in a great position to combine both the holistic therapy and the nutrition. And I've never looked back. I love working with clients and really seeing massive, profound changes. So it's a great job.
Yes, absolutely. Bringing it all the holistic work together, and it only works holistically. It works holistically much better than if we are only using one kind of any modality for that matter.
Yes,
right?
definitely. Yeah. I think a lot of people come to you and they sort of want the magic bullet, don't they? And they say, well, just tell me what to eat. The magic pill. Yes. And they say, well, tell me what to eat, or what supplement can I take? And I always say, you know what, I wish it was that simple, but it's really not. We kind of have to come at this in lots of different ways. And that's when it kind of comes together and it works. But unfortunately, as you well know, there's no magic pill, is there?
Yeah. So what kind of people do you normally work with? Women, men, or mixed?
Well, I do. I mean, obviously, with my training, you kind of cover everything. But I'd say the majority of time I am working with women. I'm working with women in perimenopause and menopause.
Right.
That's the time of life that I'm in. And I know, and I'm kind of a lot of the things that I practice what I preach. I'm very much a menopausal woman and proud of it. So I walk the talk. And so that's, a lot of women I see are in peri or menopause. And it's a really tough time of life. It's sort of like, you've got maybe aging parents and you've got kids, and it's a sandwich generation. We're somewhere stuck in the middle trying to like juggle all the balls. And things that used to work maybe when you're in your 20s or your 30s are not working anymore in your 40s. So, it's we have to sort of have a new plan, a new way of approaching our health and our wellness.
Yeah. So when you say that things that were working in your 20s and now they don't work, what kind of things, what are you referring to?
Well, I mean, I guess we're going to get into the nutrition bit a bit later, but I think things like exercise really spring to mind. And I mean, in my 20s, I used to do a lot of kind of hardcore exercise or hardcore. And I think that's okay, you know, when you maybe when you're younger, but certainly in this time, we know that it actually stresses the body, and it kind of increases that stress hormone cortisol. So it
Yeah.
doesn't really work so well. So in terms of like for managing weight and sort of stress levels, it's not necessarily the way to go. I mean, I'm still, you know, I still enjoy doing a little bit of that, but not like what I used to. So it's
Yeah.
more about really working, you know, at maintaining your stress levels is such a
Yeah.
big thing. So
Yeah.
exercise is something that I really like to talk about with my clients, and things like sleep as well. It's so major, you know, having good sleep hygiene, good habits, circadian rhythms, you know, all these things that maybe we just neglected in our 20s, and quite frankly, we just got away with it, but it
Yeah.
doesn't work anymore. It
Yeah.
doesn't work.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is that change of what was working before, now it is not working anymore. And I think it's not necessarily in a way just linked with because you have menopause. It may also be even if with men who don't necessarily have menopause as such, they do have menopause, but nobody talks about that.
Yeah.
But it is just a different requirement. You are at a different stage of your life,
Yes.
whether menopausing or not, because even menopause is a huge window starting anywhere from 40 till 55.
Yeah.
So it is what is happening around that age,
Yeah.
when you are seeing people. And also, what I am seeing, or what I see, women even with menopause or different ages, is that they may have younger family as well, like so many women, because they are choosing to have children much later in life. So
Mhm.
at 35, 40, they may only have a young kid, like even a year or 2 years old.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I think, you know, we talk a lot about self-care, don't we? And we sort of band it around a bit like, you know, like a buzzword, but I kind of really learned, and I try and help my clients to, you know, do that self-care and speak to yourself, you know, in a positive way, and not be so hard on yourself, because I think, you know, I do think women have a lot to sort of juggle, and often we don't prioritize our health often till it's too late, and then
Yeah,
something happens and we just feel really bad. So it's a lot about preventative measures. So, you know,
yeah, yeah,
is a lovely approach, rather than just kind of dealing with your health when you've got a problem, which
yeah.
makes things much harder.
So is this something you just have always done, or were you doing something previously, something different, and came into healthcare later?
Yeah, no, definitely. So in my 20s, I worked, as I said, I did PR and marketing for a record company, and it was completely not mind, body, spiritual related at all.
Yeah,
And I think I just, you know, I wasn't really connected to myself particularly, and you know, I didn't have healthy habits. So
yeah,
I think when I started using those holistic therapies and seeing that mind body connection, like
yeah,
I think so many people are really disconnected, aren't they, from their bodies? So it was a bit of a revelation. And
yeah,
then I realized it was something that I could retrain in. And I just loved helping other people. It sounds really cliche, but it is such a joy to be able to help other people. And then obviously you're helping yourself along the way, because you're learning so much.
yeah,
So yeah, I really kind of came to it in my late 20s, early 30s, and have never really looked back. And I think you're always on a learning journey. There's so much to kind of learn, and the research is changing, and certainly nutrition, it's always changing and evolving, and
yeah.
it's a really interesting area.
Absolutely. We know that, and it's a very common statement, or you are what you eat. We also know this from Ayurvedic medicine, which is what I practice.
Yes.
It's not only just that you are what you eat, it's what you can digest, what you can assimilate, what your body can actually make use of. And food is the part which either makes you or breaks you, depending on how you're using food. So what is your view on food as such? Because it's such a huge topic, food and nutrition.
Yeah. Well, I was going to first say that sometimes with my clients, We don't even talk about food in the first sort of week or so, because I get them to sit down and slow down and chew their food and make time for eating. And I think we've become, as a society, you know, we grab food on the go, you know, we guzzle food, and, you know, as you say, you're as good as what you can absorb nutrient wise. So actually, if I'm dealing with that sort of person, one of the first, and they don't particularly like it, because they're like, I want to know what to eat and I want to know what supplements I can take. I'm like, hang on a minute, that's just, you know, because it is so important just to slow down. So that's kind of one of the first things that I look at. And then I guess, you know, food wise, well, you know, I mean, we could talk about individual hormones, but should we talk about food? Let's talk about food.
Yes, anything you want to talk about.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
Conversation.
Well, I was going to say, I mean, there's kind of, as you really well know, there's like so many hormones flying around the body, isn't there?
Yeah.
But in terms of like menopause especially, there's like 4 key ones that I like to sort of think about.
Yeah.
And the first one is your cortisol and your stress hormone. And like, as we spoke about before, you know, our cortisol, which is constantly being mobilized, it kind of raises our blood sugar level, which is great when we have to run away from the saber-toothed tiger. But in day-to-day life, because we're constantly in this fight or flight mode, it's really detrimental. It's detrimental to our digestion and our immunity. And it kind of puts that weight around the middle as well, because, you know, we're mobilizing these sugars and then we're kind of not really using them. So that it's a problem. So cortisol is one of the main 4. Insulin, which is, you know, produces, you know, it's our fat storing hormone. And again, you know, we're eating such a diet rich in carbohydrate as well. We're having lots of sugar highs, sugar lows, cravings, etc. So we're kind of in this perpetual cycle of blood sugar imbalance. So we want to think about our insulin as our second important hormone. And then estrogen and progesterone as well. We know, you know, these give us our female traits, and they're really, really important. And they're obviously declining in this time of life as well. So we want to try and support our estrogen, our progesterone. And then our thyroid as well is really, really key. We have a thyroid receptor in every single cell, and it's basically the hormone that converts food to energy. So I didn't want to make it like a science lesson, but I do think it's kind of important just to, like, you know, pull out those 4. And basically why they're important is because if one's out of balance, it affects the other. So we kind of want them to all work together. So that's really key. So the nutrition recommendations that I make always have those things in mind, all those hormones in mind.
So do you, sorry, just quick question. Do you then, you know, test them, or patients already come tested for these hormones?
Yeah, so a lot of people will have blood tests. As we know, blood tests, especially in menopause, are just a literal snapshot of that moment in time, because what happens is it's like you're on a roller coaster ride. So some people could say, oh, look, my hormone levels are in the normal range. But, you know, if you tested them the next day, they wouldn't be. So, but people do have bloods, and bloods can be a really good starting point. Some people have more sort of in-depth testing, things like Dutch tests, which uses urine testing. But, you know, it depends on the person. But bloods are a really good place to start. But obviously, when I see a client, I do a very detailed case history, literally going back to day dot, you know, all their childhood history, you know, going through all the decades to sort of really have a really deep understanding of the root causes. And I'm sure that's how you also work as well, looking at root causes.
Yes.
Rather than just dealing with the symptoms that they're facing now.
And
so, then, sorry.
So 4 hormones.
Those 4 hormones are, you know, obviously there's loads, but we kind of think about them. And I think people like to understand their bodies a little bit more. And it's not just about me saying you should eat this, you should. It's kind of a bit about education. And I think when you have a little bit of education around food and understand it a bit more, then it's much better, you know, to be able to walk into a supermarket and feel more confident about what you're going to buy and what you're going to make.
Yeah.
So because I think walking into a supermarket is a little bit it's quite overwhelming, isn't it, to really know, because there's a lot of food claims out there. This is healthy, this is low fat, this is no sugar, this is you know, no gluten. But what does that actually really mean? What does that mean?
Yeah.
How's that going to help you? So yeah, I mean, I'm happy to go through some of the key dietary recommendations that I make. They're quite broad and quite generic, but it's probably good for people to have a think about them.
Yeah, sure.
So those are things like eating like low GI foods. So when I was talking about those insulin spikes, you obviously, you know, having blood sugar balance and sort of being quite nicely balanced throughout the day, rather than like this, is kind of what we're aiming for. And low GI foods help you do that, because these are foods that don't have a big impact on your blood sugar response. So, you know, some people may present you with a food diary and there's like loads of white pasta and white rice and, you know, baguettes and all of that stuff. So it's really kind of ditching the white stuff and going to more like wholemeal versions, for example, if you can. And sometimes they're actually even much more delicious than the white stuff anyway. And then really kind of understanding what low GI foods are. So, you know, there's low GI fruits, for example. So things like berries and apples and pears are more low GI than some other sorts of fruits. So these are the things that are going to keep your blood sugar nice and stable. You know, lots of vegetables, lots of beans and pulses. And, you know, I think we're sort of opening our minds up more to more Mediterranean style eating and vegetarian and vegan and, you know, and that sort of stuff. And I mean, I guess there's been a huge thing about healthy gut bacteria and your microbiome, and it's such a huge area of research. I mean, Zoe and all the stuff that Zoe does is everywhere, and it's really brought it into the mainstream, which is great. Not everyone can afford to obviously do their program, but some of the educational information they put out, I think, is really, really good. So we're talking about gut diversity and you know, having people often eat the same thing every day, and it's trying to sort of encourage you to have diversity, because this in turn has an impact on your gut microbiome. So you know, we know that the gut microbiome relates to your immune system, mental health, your making neurotransmitters, digestion. It's a huge, your gut barrier. It's absolutely a huge area. So I think, and what your gut bacteria really likes is diversity. So color.
Yes, absolutely. And what do you think of, you know, certain foods or certain things in the market which are labeled as free from or low GI or low sugar or low this? What's your view on that?
Yeah, I actually often think that things with health claims on them are probably a bit problematic. And actually, I was listening to Dr. Mark Hyman this morning, who I really love. And he was saying, if you see anything with a health claim on it, put it down, you know, something, because it's often kind of misleading and it's not really what it is. So, you know, it's sort of, I would really encourage people to go back to the basics of, if something's got a long food list, put it down. A broccoli doesn't have a food list. It just is what it is. So, you know, I think a lot of those ultra processed foods with loads of health claims, high protein, low fat, you know, gluten free, it's probably an ultra processed food. So I would leave it as it is. Obviously, one person in 100 is genuinely celiac, and therefore they can't eat gluten, and that is something completely different. But I think we need to just kind of really think about real food, like what our grandparents ate, which is no ultra processed food.
Yes, a lot of people are now becoming aware. I hope so,
Yeah,
that I am seeing it like that. But I'm not a big fan of anything which is any kind of free from food. So I don't recommend those to my clients or patients. It's about
yeah,
real proper foods that you can eat. And as you mentioned, that because so many people say I'm allergic to this and I'm allergic to that, which is generally is a sensitivity. It is not allergic reactions are very strong and only very few
absolutely.
people suffer from it. But yes, it is good to know that you feel the same, because so many people just choose that from the shelf. Also, I think it's just purely out of convenience, because it's just easier to grab something which says low GI rather than putting your mind to it.
Yeah,
Also, maybe because nobody reaches out to people like you and me more often, because that's what they need to do, so that practitioner can understand your body requirements, can
yeah.
understand your energy requirements, your health requirements, and then give you something which is a better food.
That's right. I mean, it's quite hard for people going to the supermarket and making good choices because the marketing is really clever and it's confusing. And I feel, everywhere we turn, there's food, convenience food, wherever we turn. It's quite hard. But that's one of the things that I really help people with is it does require a bit of planning, because I think if you just rely on convenience food, it's not going to turn out well. So you do need to think about, oh, I'm out at meetings today, so if I can't, grab something healthy, then I can maybe take something with me, or I've got an emergency stash of apples and nuts, for example, or something like that. So, because we're surrounded by ultra processed food, which has all these health claims on, and I think it's problematic and confusing for people to
Yeah,
really work out what they should be eating. But
absolutely. Yeah.
there is a movement to say, come on, let's go back to basics. Let's cook from scratch. Let's,
Yeah.
try and use minimally processed ingredients. And it's just kind of simplifying it for people as well.
Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, that's what I would like to think, that we are simplifying it for them, but it is people's simpler idea is that grabbing something which is in a can and just use it, whereas we know that most canned foods are not really good for you, or has got other additives in them which are not good for
Yes.
you.
Yeah.
So it
Yeah.
is also changing your mindset and changing your habits, because I find changing somebody's food habits is probably the hardest thing, because it is linked with how you move about whole day, how you live your life as such, what you eat in the morning. And if you're used to certain particular food, like I know what I am used to, but that
Yes.
is helping me and serving me, so it's not a bad choice. But for some others, they may be doing something which is a bad choice for them, and it is not serving them, because food is all
Absolutely.
about habits.
Yeah, I mean, I would say if you are thinking about changing some things in your diet, don't do an overhaul of everything in one go. Do it bit by bit. Start with breakfast. Literally, just start with breakfast for the first few weeks, because I think people want to go all in, all or nothing, and then they're overwhelmed and then nothing changes. So, or even look at your snacks if you have to snack, look at what sort of snacks you're going for. And so it's very much about a slowly approach. And we know that if you do a slow approach and you do make that into a habit, then in a few weeks time it's quite set, and then you can move on to the next little thing. But don't do an overhaul in one go. It's just not realistic at
Yeah.
all.
Yeah.
And not everyone can afford to have a nutritionist tell them or guide them. But
No, no.
I would really say slow and steady is always the way to go with these things.
So you also mentioned that you work with cancer patients,
Yes.
right? So where is that? Is that work part of NHS? So it's a private.
No, it's actually a charity, and it's a fantastic a big charity in northwest London, and they have all under one roof. There's counselling and holistic therapies, and they offer yoga and Pilates and all sorts of kind of social events as well. So it's kind of like a really lovely haven for patients and their families to come into,
Mhm.
and And what's great is, as I said, it's, you know, we're complementary therapists there, so it's very much alongside conventional medicine.
Yeah.
But it doesn't feel like you're coming into a, you know, a medical place. It's very much, you know, a lovely place for relaxation and, yeah, to kind of get away from all the hospital visits as well.
Right. Okay. No,
Yeah,
that is good to know, because we know that there is cancer is on the rise, and there are so many more people who are diagnosed, and women then, of course, are diagnosed with, for example, breast cancer. Cervical cancer is also becoming more common, especially breast cancer. And we know that it is more common in South Asian women as well. They have got more incidence of breast cancer. And it
yeah,
is how then we approach it, diet being one part of it. I have heard from couple of patients, as well as from other people who have had family members or someone who was suffering from cancer, is that I know that you are working with the private charity, so it's probably different. But I know that on the NHS, what kind of diet they are advised or not advised at all.
yeah.
Do you know of any experience like that? Have you heard? Because I have heard so many things
I
about it.
have, yeah, I definitely have. I mean, a lot of the time with cancer patients, it's just about getting calories in, and it's not necessarily the quality of food
Yeah.
that's going in, but it's very different. And also, you know, I work with cancer patients across the board, so many different types of cancer. So it's quite hard to sort of say one
Yeah.
thing that fits everybody, because it's quite complicated. But yeah, it's difficult. It's difficult when clients and patients are going through cancer, because often their appetites are massively
Yeah.
reduced.
Yeah.
Their taste buds have changed. You know, they're exhausted. So often, yeah, the advice that are given is just to get calories in. So whereas I would, you know, I'm not working on the nutritional side with cancer patients because it's a very specialized thing.
Right.
But you know, sometimes you would want them to have more quality things going in there. But
Yeah.
it's a tricky one. It's
Right.
a tricky
So
one.
is there somebody else who's doing that in the charity? Is there
Yeah,
some?
there is a dietitian there. There is a dietitian, which is sort of more aligned to that NHS sort of approach to nutrition for cancer patients. Yeah, yeah.
Right. Okay.
So
How does that work? Because charity is a private charity. I don't know if that's the word, but it's a charity. So it is. How are they following? Do they have to follow NHS protocol in terms of
no,
diet?
no, no. But I think that's more the training is more kind of that more it's more NHS like guided training rather than I'm a nutritional therapist, so I'm more coming from that holistic background. And obviously, you know, I've had a 3-year intensive training, but it's more of a holistic approach, more of a functional medicine approach. So looking at root causes
Yeah.
and, you know, coming at it. And as I said to you before we started turn this on, I was like, it's very much about lifestyle as well. You know, it's so much about lifestyle.
Yeah.
It's about stress management and movement and exercise and sleep. And of course, the nutrition part is so key.
Yeah.
But if you have the best nutrition in the world, but you're stressed out or you don't move and you don't sleep, well, that's not going to work. That's not going to work. You
Yes.
know, I can give you the best supplements, but you know, it's sort of, as I said, coming from that 360 approach is really important.
Yes. Absolutely. And how? Why are you more interested in food? Is there anything that is coming from personal experience? Anything that is coming from, where is it coming from?
I love food and I love eating. um, I
Yeah.
actually think like, well, what you eat really sort of, it's something very immediate when you eat, how it changes how you feel.
Hmm.
It changes, you know, it kind of is that mind body, you know, it's very much can change your mood, it can change your energy. So I think when you start sort of eating better, you can see a really quick sort of result with that. So that's why I love working with clients, because even in the first few weeks they're saying, oh, I feel more energized and I'm sleeping better and things. So it's like an immediate thing. And
Right.
I think that food's really, really joyful. I mean, what's better than sitting down and with friends or family and eating? I mean, I can't think of anything better than that. It's one of the joys in life, isn't it? And actually, in some
Yeah.
ways, it's like, the fun's been taken out of food. It's sort
Yeah.
of like, I think we should eat and enjoy our food, and you can eat really, really well and really plentifully with the right foods. It's not about restriction. And I
No.
think people immediately, I mean, menopausal women, when they're starting to gain weight around the middle, one of the first things they do is restrict. And
Yeah.
actually that causes more stress to the body. The body
Yes.
doesn't want you to restrict them. They want the right foods. You need fats in your diet, and you need carbohydrate, and you need fiber. And
Yeah.
so I think like if you get it right, it can be such a wonderful thing, because there's nothing worse than being hungry. No one wants to be hungry. You want to eat
No.
the right things plentifully and enjoy your food.
Yes, yes. I mean, I don't have that kind of relationship with food personally. For
Yeah,
me, food is nutrition, energy, and that's about it. I've never relied emotionally on food.
yeah,
And
yeah,
I remember when I initially moved to the UK, which was 26 years ago, I was just amazed to see the kind of relationship people have with food. You know, how it is the whole life revolves around food for some people.
yeah,
It is
yeah,
about eating or cooking, or for me, it's like, okay, cook something, eat it, and that's it, and get on with other things in life. But I only learned, you know, that some people have go food gives them a huge, huge joy. Not that it doesn't do that to me, but it's not something which is at the forefront of my habits or my mind.
yeah,
But I only learned it later that it is for people.
yeah,
Food is
yeah,
something that is hugely a part of their whole emotional setup, how people are involved with food.
yeah. I know there definitely is that emotional link, very much so. But I mean, I think what I learned throughout changing all the way that I eat was that I used to eat a breakfast which was like cereal or something like that, and then by 11 o'clock I was really hungry again, and I didn't really think about that. So I ate again at 11, and then I ate again at 1, and then so I kept on eating, because I wasn't eating the right things at my meal times to sustain me to the next meal. So that's why I was talking about that blood sugar roller coaster, which I was on. And then I'd grab some biscuits, and then it was just very much all over the place. So, and now I don't want to say, I do everything right, because I really don't. But, I can really have 3 really like hearty meals a day, and that works really well for me. I don't feel like I need to snack, because I'm eating the right thing at my meal times.
Yeah.
I don't want to sort of demonize any particular food groups. And I also say to my clients, if you're going to a party or you're having a family meal, enjoy yourself.
Yes. Yeah.
Have an 80-20 rule, which means
Same.
80%.
I say I say the
And
same.
you got this as well.
80-20. Yes.
80-20. So I say, enjoy 80% of the time. Like, obviously eat for your health and do what works well with your body. But 20%, if you're going to a party and you want to have a glass of wine, that's okay.
Yeah.
It's fine.
Yeah.
And I think that makes people really relax and enjoy and realize that, it doesn't have to be 100%. I mean, who can do 100%?
No, nobody can and nobody should have to do 100%, because your body need to also be able to take that shock, so that it can adjust as well. Because we shouldn't be living in a sterile environment. We should be living in an environment where body can balance itself. So I
Yeah,
also say to people sometimes, control your home environment, because that's what easy to control. You can't control an outside environment. If you're outside, you are hungry, you want to grab something, you are short of time. And 80-20 is what I always say,
yeah,
do 80-20, which means you can have one cheat meal in a week,
yeah,
right? And For those people where their job dictates like that, where they are eating out more than once, that's where they will then have to start looking at what can they change about it so that it is not having a negative impact. But 80/20, absolutely. And control your home environment, not control, but optimize your home environment, home cooking, so that it is healthy. And
Yeah,
then even if you then have to go out and eat or go to a party and eat, so that you can then enjoy, you know, the
absolutely.
fact that I feel that the fact that I can eat whatever I want because I eat so carefully most of the time,
Yeah.
is at certain times then I don't have to think about what I'm eating.
Mm. No, I totally agree. It does require a bit of prep, doesn't it, to kind of think
Yes.
ahead and kind of plan it a bit. But you know, I think there's nothing worse than so many people. They come back from work at 8 o'clock and they open the fridge and there's nothing ready to go, so they will just order that pizza or whatever. And I think so. Therefore, you do need to be a bit more mindful and a bit of planning. And once you get that on the go, then it can really fall into place.
Yes,
But I'm
absolutely.
pleased. I'm pleased that we both had the 80/20. I like
Yeah, I
that.
know. It's business rule as well as food rule. It's life rule. I think 80% of the time, if you're living and sleeping on time, 80% of the time, doing right things 80% of the time, then
Yeah,
overall you will be healthy than most people are. You know.
definitely,
Yeah.
definitely. It just allows some sort of, a little bit of wiggle room there, because life is definitely not 100%. So you have to make allowances and enjoy.
Yes, yes. Also, that, as I said, if you are so strict about anything, if you like, even yes, there should be a window for everything, and sometimes your body need to be able to go a little bit of unbalanced way and then return back to its balance. But it can only do that if it has that strong foundation of being consistent.
Definitely.
If you are consistent of for 80% of the time, whether it's exercise, then one day if you don't exercise, that's okay, your body will be able to adjust. But
Mm,
one thing is, and what you pointed out, there has to be some planning. It has to be at the forefront of your mind. For example, I'm very well aware daily how much I eat, portion size, and not that I'm counting. I've never counted calories in my life,
yeah,
but it's just something that I'm aware. If I'm aware that, okay, tonight I'm going out or I have a party, then I will starve myself a little bit through the day so that I can enjoy that meal at the party, so that I don't have to think twice about it.
yeah.
So that definitely has to be there, so that it is part of your consciousness in a way. You
Mm,
can't just be very random about it.
hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, some people do find the sort of social part a little bit more tricky, but I don't. Yeah, I often say to clients, if you're going out for dinner, don't go completely starving, because then you're going to open yourself up to overeating. So
Yeah.
even have something like a little bit of protein before you go, so you don't go to that table saying, I'm going to order everything on this menu. So I think it's just kind of like practical advice as well of
Hmm.
how to approach things.
Yes.
People worry when they go on holiday, but I always say, well, it's so lovely going on holiday, because you're going to try new foods that you wouldn't necessarily eat before. So that's a good thing. Still with sort of keeping that plate proportion in mind. Obviously, I often talk about like how your plate should look, and
Yeah.
if at least half of your plate is vegetables, colorful vegetables, that's really fantastic. That's bringing a lot of fiber in, and we know that we need that fiber. It's so
Yeah.
important, especially like with the hormone side of it, because it helps to sort of detoxify you, having lots of fiber. It helps the liver kind of pass through those hormones through your body.
Yeah.
So half that plate, lots of colorful vegetables. 30% should be protein. And I think people often kind of get a bit like, oh, really? And that's like a palm size piece of meat or fish, or if you're veggie, obviously lentils or pulses and beans or tofu. So that's 30%. And then, a little bit of carbohydrate on there. Like, people are scared to eat carbohydrate, but we need carbs, complex carbs, things that I said, like the brown stuff, or quinoa or brown rice or something like that. And then, we need the healthy fats as well, the, olive oil or, avocado. And, I think, again, people, I remember when I was growing up in the 80s, like everything was low fat and people were scared of eating fat, which is such a shame. We need fat to make our hormones. It's absolutely key. And often when something says low fat, it usually means loads of sugar is in there, because obviously it changes the taste when you take out all the fat as well. So I like to sort of give like an image, like I give a picture for somebody to stick up on their fridge of how that plate proportion should look like. And it's not about weighing, and it's not about restriction. In fact, that plate could look really full with food, but it's in the right proportions. Right. That really works well.
Yeah. So how often do you normally see your clients? Is there a routine to it, or it is?
Yeah. So often, some people do, they want like a one-off consultation, but actually I rarely do that. I really encourage people to do at least a 6-week program, because in 6 weeks you can make a real difference. So, and because I've done a lot of health coaching over the years, I like to see that person on a weekly basis, normally on Zoom, because that makes it a lot easier for people. So, I kind of drip feed them, like what we were saying. I don't change everything in one go. I drip feed them changes and recommendations, and then they are accountable to me each week. And I make sure that they're hopefully, taking it on board. And sometimes things don't work, or you have to change it a little bit, but you work very much with that client. It's very, very much client-led. And you see those changes, and usually by the end of the 6 weeks, they're feeling very different, they're looking different, and you can see some changes. And then sometimes I've worked with clients for much longer than that, or we have a break and then they come back to you and you do follow-ups. But I think you need some time with someone to make changes, and you certainly can't overwhelm them with loads and loads of things to do, because nothing then really happens.
No. One of the things that we do have in Ayurvedic medicine is the energetics of the food, which talks about the warm food, cold foods. So this is something that I know is not part of the mainstream nutrition, because we don't talk about and in Ayurvedic medicine, or even in herbal medicine, there are degrees of that. Some food can be very cooling and some are gently cooling, and then there are degrees of hotness. Like ginger is extremely heating herb, and as compared to some other foods, like cinnamon is slightly warming, is not as heating as ginger. Do you ever, have you come across this? Do you talk about this?
I have come across this, and I have read a book about it's the Pitta and the Vata, and so I know about it a bit, but I have to be honest, I don't feel like I know enough to then pass it on. But I would always be very open to learning more, actually, because I think that Ayurvedic and all those amazing medical systems that have been in place for so long have so much. I think we need to look at those, because they hold the key to really, longevity. There's, often people come with, these different fad diet concepts, and they're not going to work. They are not going to work. So that's, I think, drawing from that medical way of living is fantastic. Yeah, I need to do some more reading around that.
No, this is because it is very unique to natural medicines. All natural medicines talk about it. Ayurveda has whole system of it, because it is very extensive, and Ayurvedic medicine is a full-blown system. It's not just only one therapy that they do. It's a logical sequence to everything. But this is something that I find suitability of a certain food according to the energetics of that person. So the food has to be suitable to your body mind constitution, right? So if you are a warm person by nature, eating warm foods are not going to be that beneficial for you. It's just logical, isn't it? So that I find something which we need to add to mainstream nutrition, so that we can make it even more advanced.
So when you work with your fertility patients, you kind of work out what sort of body system, and then in terms of applying all all your recommendations, you work it
Yes,
around that.
absolutely. So it is, I think it's another layer on top of what you are doing. So if you are just talking about the foods and the nutrition of it, then I am talking about, in addition, energetics of the actual food and your
Yes.
energetics as a person. So
Mm-hmm.
if you are vata pitta, right, then you have to have foods accordingly, and that it is a little bit more complex for sure, because many of my patients then will say, but then they are contradictory, because vata pitta foods are contradictory to each other, so what do I then eat, and that's where the trick comes in. That's where it becomes a little bit more specific, and how do you eat. But it makes a huge difference if we understand the body mind constitution, or the type of the person, and we are giving them food accordingly. Then it makes the absorption much faster of
Yeah,
that particular food, right?
yeah,
Whereas if somebody is colder as a person, that means their system needs a little bit more warming up, and they are eating colder foods, they are not going to be able to digest that food very well. So that I find is something that Ayurveda adds, that another layer to nutrition.
yeah. No,
Yeah,
it's
no,
fantastic.
yes.
I've got a bit of feedback coming through actually.
Oh, I can hear you.
Okay. Okay,
Fine.
good.
Yes, yes.
Good.
So great. I think that's why we are talking, so that we can exchange more ideas, and make it even better for the patients and for ourselves as well, to live a better optimized life, rather than, because I think one of the things that people think, oh, I need to eat something more fancier, I need to eat something in more quantity, I need to eat something, I don't know, buy an expensive food, for example. Whereas it is about, even if you have the same quantity, but if your absorption is working really, really well, you can actually absorb that same food, but absorb it much faster or more than compared
Mm-hmm.
to someone else
Yeah,
who's eating more,
yeah, yeah.
and it is about optimizing your system even more, as a body and mind, and your bioavailability and your mechanical system of your body. How can we optimize it even further? So
No, I totally agree. Yeah, I think, it's not about eating fancy foods or having expensive foods. I think it's almost the opposite, really. I think it's going back to basics. And, you can eat very well on a budget. We don't, a lot of people can't afford to buy organic foods, and that's absolutely fine.
fine.
I mean, we do need to think about the quality of food. There's a really lovely charity, actually, a UK charity called Pan UK, and what they do is they look at fruits and vegetables, and they kind of rank them in terms of what you could possibly buy organic and what is fine to buy conventionally, in
Hmm.
terms of how much pesticides are on them. And that's quite a nice thing that people can have a look at. There is an American version, which is slightly different, because American farming and our farming is completely different.
Yeah.
But I would encourage people, it's called the Clean 15 Dirty Dozen list. And, it kind of ranks the foods that you should maybe think about buying organic. I mean, certain things in the supermarket now, like carrots, for example, they're kind of the same price, organic and non-organic. So just, if you're going to pick up a bag of carrots, and go for the organic ones.
Yeah.
But we should definitely be eating more plant foods. And generally speaking, they are not that expensive. They're affordable, aren't they? So if we think about lots of different color and diversity, and seasonal as well. So, if we think about seasonal foods, that's really great, because we know that they've not been shipped from the other side of the world, and they've not been sitting on a shelf for 6 months before we actually get to eat them. So, there's some really brilliant lists on the internet, eating seasonally, what's in season at the moment.
Yeah.
So it's not about having the big budget, it's about knowledge and kind of, being smart about it if you can.
Yeah, it is for sure, learning about all of this, which is why we are talking about it, so that more people can learn about it and can make those empowered choices. And it's not about expensive foods at all. It is about how we can make those choices better, in every possible way. Yes.
Yeah.
So tell me, who is in charge of your kitchen?
Well, my husband is a much, much better cook than I am. He's one of those people who can make something out of nothing with a few ingredients. But I have two teenage daughters, so I am often making the food during the week, and then my husband kind of takes over the weekend.
Right.
But my kids sometimes raise an eyebrow and go, "Oh, Mom, not this again." Is it veggie? So, but I try and obviously cater for them and what they like.
Yeah.
I don't have a veggie kitchen. We do eat meat and we do eat fish and we
Sure.
do eat poultry. So there is, it's all in there.
Yeah.
But, I think it's hard with teenage girls because you obviously, you want to educate them, but not ram it down their throats. So they completely go in the other direction. So I think it's about balance.
Yeah.
But I think all their friends know when they come to this house, the snack drawer is on the healthier side.
I know, I know. I remember my kids, I have twins, and I used to take every time I'll go and pick them up, there'll be avocado, there'll be some fruit, and they just got
Exactly.
eventually sick of it. Mommy, can you bring something else and no avocado tomorrow? So
Exactly. Oh
I did that for
no.
years.
Yeah, I've got the same sort of reaction, and I'm like, you will thank me one day.
Yes, yes.
Maybe
But you
not
can
now.
see that, in terms of their health. Like
Yes,
kids have got
definitely.
great health. And I'm sure if you're doing that, your kids will have the great health
I
too.
hope so. But it's also about, teaching them to cook and, trying to get them to be self-sufficient. So when they go off to university or whatever they do, then, they
They can,
have some skills there.
I don't know about that.
Or maybe not. But we're trying. We're trying. I mean, yeah. I
Okay.
think, yeah.
That's wonderful. Thank you for sharing that, because it is it is important as practitioners, especially I feel as practitioners of holistic medicine and looking at life and health holistically, that what we do in our lives, so that we can talk about the same thing to our clients and patients. It would be disingenuous if we were not living like that and just talking to our patients about it.
Yes.
Will not be beneficial. So yeah, that's the reason I always ask, what is happening in your health and your well-being as well.
No, definitely. And I mean, definitely with the whole sort of perimenopause and menopause journey that I've been on, I really, I've tried lots of different supplements and types of exercise and obviously nutrition, and I really try and practice what I preach. So I've decided not to take HRT at the moment, and I've tried to go the natural route. Maybe down the line I may have to take HRT for whatever reason, but that's the choice I've made. I'm not anti HRT if it's life changing for a lot of women.
Yeah.
For me, it's not something that I've wanted to do or needed to do at the moment. So, yeah, I think it's important to walk the walk and talk the talk, isn't it? Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. It's good to know that, and also good to know, what you're doing. I am similar, menopausal, but not it's still having my periods and not having any symptoms yet. But I know that it is going to come in whichever, however much intensity is different from person to person.
Yeah.
But it is about informing ourselves and making all these nutritional choices as well, because like we know that we need more protein, around this age,
Yeah.
so that women can then choose to have those informed choices.
Yes, definitely. I mean, one of the things that I get a lot of is women being very, very upset about weight distribution and sort of, gaining a lot of weight around their middle, which we know from a sort of health perspective is, really not very good for your organs and, inflammatory diseases, etc. And, but, a lot of that is to do with stress management as well and cortisol. So, it's very much like, but I'm not, I'm restricting my food and I'm exercising like crazy, but I'm gaining weight and I've never had weight around the middle. But I just, you try and sort of explain it from a cortisol perspective and, maybe trying to do more relaxing exercise or taking some more time out and, not being so hard on yourself. and nourishing your body. And it just sort of, the light goes on. It's like, wow, I didn't realize that was the approach. So
Yes.
I think it's, as I said in the beginning, it's very much about lifestyle, and as well as the food that's going in as well.
Yes, yes. This is great, because I'm so glad, more of us are there, and more practitioners are now doing lifestyle medicine. Your diet, your food, your healthcare can't be different from your lifestyle. It fits in together, so that you have a great health. And also about women who are then going through this transitional phase, which could come at 40, which could come at 45, which could come at 50, 50 plus,
Yeah.
is how to make these choices and how to change nutritional habits as well, so that they have a great health, whether they choose to have HRT or not. That is again a personal choice, and sometimes a medical one as well,
Yeah.
depending on the health. But thank you for sharing, how you use nutrition in your practice and at your home as well, a little bit. It's great to have this conversation, Debbie. I know we can continue, but I think we are out of time.
No, that's fine. It's been lovely to talk to you, and thank you. And I hope to talk to you again.
Yes, we're going to continue these discussions and every Friday. So everybody who's listening as well, if you have any questions, do pop them in now or later, or if you catch it on replay. And if you have any questions, especially to Debbie, and Debbie, please, the charities that you have mentioned, please share them in the links as well, on LinkedIn. And then people, if they want to pick any of that information up, they can do that.
Brilliant. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Debbie. Thank
Take
you.
care. Bye-bye.